to make sure.
Hello and welcome into this week's edition of AFMC TV. We're so glad you're joining us. Today we are talking about the dangers of sitting too much. We've brought in Dr. Beth Milligan, one of the physicians here at AFMC, to help us dissect some of the dangers when it comes to sitting so much. Hi, Dr. Beth.
Good morning.
So, Dr. Beth, regardless if we're working remotely or in an office space, what are some of the dangers when it comes to sitting so long for 8-9 hours a day?
They directly linked sitting too long with chronic medical problems, increased diabetes, even increase in cancers, some cancers.
So to say we need breaks is probably an understatement, right?
Absolutely, we need breaks. We need to stand more, that's for sure.
So I'm curious the correlation between sitting too much and some of the chronic health conditions. Any indications how those are linked?
Well, it's pretty much a simple answer. When you stand up and you move, that actually helps the blood circulating through the heart and particularly the colon. So if you're not moving around and you're sitting too much, you can't really even move the colon around, and people tend to have more gastrointestinal disturbances because of it.
Okay, so how long should we be getting up? How often? How long should we be walking? What are some of those numbers to just kind of keep everything moving correctly?
Well, you'll get different answers depending on who you ask, but some people are saying for every hour you need 15 minutes where you stand up and walk around. Well, a lot of jobs won't allow that, and students cannot do that. So then they'll turn around and say, well, if you sit all day, then you need to come home and you need to get 90 minutes of exercise where you're walking around and getting your heart rate up.
You bring up a good point when you touched on students. What kind of impact is sitting all day in the classroom? And I'm particularly thinking of our elementary age students, the ones who are still in their early developmental years.
Well, that's a very good question. Particularly with children, we run into issues where they sit too much and they tend to have more problems with weight. And that's been a problem we've run into. And inactivity, obviously, through our younger years increases the chance of developing chronic medical problems much earlier on.
All the more reason why recess is so important, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so if we notice that we are sitting too much, because sometimes it's out of habit, and we may not even realize just how much we're sitting. Can sitting too much also contribute to maybe lower back pain, tight hamstrings, problems with our hips?
Yes, correct. They've actually did a study of people who sit a lot on their jobs and things. So actually shorting that hamstring in the back, the big muscle down the back will shorten. So when they stand up, it hurts. And then because it hurts, they sit down more. And that's the opposite thing you need to do. And it scares people. And then they start developing other problems like lower back problems if the chair isn't sitting right and they're slumped down too long or their necks are down. They'll start having neck pain because they're hunkered over the computer, and a lot of people are at home working and they don't have those ergometric keyboards and computers where you can sit to stand. That's all gone. So as a result, they have all these other problems that we're starting to see now from just sitting too long.
Are there any stretches that we could do, just basic stretches, to help with working out any of the kinks?
Well, I think I'd first of all saying if you're in a position, unless you're on camera with Zoom meetings, you actually can get your arms and actually move your arms around and do some exercises in the upper body if you're forced to sit. Another thing I've actually seen people do, if you can, is they'll put a special thing at their computer where they can pedal a stationary pedal on their legs to keep their legs moving. And I have seen someone do that recently, and I said, that's really impressive. I need to do that myself. But you can actually do some movements there at the desk. Now, once you're able to stand, you actually want to do a stretch to the hamstrings. hamstrings being the big leg muscles in the front and the back of the leg. You need to gently, bend over and stretch down as they've taught you, even before you're going to run, and probably do it right after you stand up to try to get that mobility back where you're sitting so long.
Can we talk a little bit about some of the kinks in the chain, so to speak? When you're sitting, you have a kink at your hips and you have a kink at your knees. And maybe talk a little bit about how that can inhibit the blood flow from your toes to your knees to your hips and back down.
You brought up a really good point. When we sit too long, you actually increase the risk for that blood to pool down in that leg, because you have to get up and move. Even young people can have blood clots in their legs, especially if they're a little bigger and they have little health problems. You're setting yourself up for a blood clot. So you want to keep that. And so the blood will pool down in the leg, and you can get a blood clot in the lower part of the leg. And that's the first place it goes because it's bent. Now, since you break that up, I'm going to go ahead and answer a question is support stockings. And I actually own those myself because I have high blood pressure and some few things that makes me at risk for blood clots. So I do wear support stockings, and you can get those at a lot of different places. You can buy some of them that'll get you up in the compression level you need to squeeze that blood up while you're sitting so long.
All things that we need to be thinking about as we age and as we move into more of a remote type atmosphere, sitting all the time, not really going out as much.
Correct.
Okay, well, Dr. Beth, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think it's just important to keep yourself motivated. If you find yourself sitting too long, it could be connected with other medical problems. You might be depressed or things are not feeling good. So be sure if you find yourself doing that, you can't get up and moving around, to go ahead and seek a medical advice and find out what you're doing that maybe is causing you to do that.
All right, sounds good. I'm telling you, after this conversation, it makes me want to go run. So
you do it.
Thanks, Dr. Beth, for talking to us about the dangers of sitting too long.
JJ Mayo joins us now. Hi, JJ.
What's going on, Michelle? Excited to be here to talk about health again. I'm ready.
We are, and I'm really excited about this topic. We are talking about weight loss, but how not to be negative and how negativity maybe can impact our weight loss. So let's maybe first start with maybe an obvious question, which would be our head and our headspace. How much does that influence when we decide to go down the weight loss journey?
It definitely has a big influence. When I talk about negative mindset, it's what I call a form of self-sabotage. And a lot of people don't even realize that they're doing it, that they're sabotaging their weight loss success by just the way they think. And, when I teach this in my classes, I basically teach the eating, the activity, and the mindset. It's that important. And this is one of the biggest things that trips people up, is the way they think about their weight loss and what's possible for them. So here's what we know. We know that how you think affects your behaviors, and then your behaviors are going to lead to those outcomes, whether you get those outcomes or not. And so how you think is so important, and changing your health, whether people like it or not, is an inside job. It starts within, and it starts in your head and what you think, and you need to start thinking differently. Like, for instance, I got an email from somebody the other day, and they're in a weight loss class with me, and they said, "Oh, I've only lost 6 pounds." Well, we've only been doing the class for 5 weeks. And so for me, I'm like, that's amazing. You should be proud of yourself. But she only said, I only lost. So even those little things that are subtle and hidden really trip us up. And so what we really need to do is we really need to start thinking differently about what's possible, because how you see your health, I think I've said this before, how you see your health and your weight loss really determines what's going to be possible for you.
So what are some little mental hacks that we can work on in kind of flipping that script in our head?
Yeah. So we really need to get rid of all that negative. We call it, I said negative mindset. We said mindset, but it's that negative self-talk that we have. And like I said, a lot of times we don't even know we're doing it. And it's time to end the stories that are in our head about things like you said, the guy said, only lost 6 pounds. Or other people will say, I can't do it. I've never been successful, or that weight loss is hard because, and they fill in the blank. And those stories that we have that start in our head, which actually come from past experiences, those stories and beliefs keep us stuck. They keep us from making progress. And so they keep us, and one of the reasons people do this and they don't do it intentionally is, but when they say, it's hard and I can't do it, it's keeping us safe. It's keeping us in our comfort zone. And so what you really got to do is you got to be open to the possibilities and change the way you think. Instead of saying, I can't, it's like, I can do this. And what will I do to be successful? And when you do that, that's when you start making the changes. And specifically, the first step would be to acknowledge and write down and pay attention to what you say to yourself throughout the day. That would be the first step to jumping in and making this happen. Mm-hmm.
So it's a step of courage or bravery as we are headed down this journey.
Yep, no doubt about it. And here's the thing, don't let your past, because that's what people do. They say, I can't do this. I haven't been successful in the past, and so I can't do it in the future. And they're predicting the past, or they're predicting the future based on their past experiences. And you just got to let that stuff go. You got to kind of be the scientist, if you will, and say, you know what? I haven't been successful, but all the behaviors, all the things I've done to get me to this point, they're lessons that I've learned. And so now what I want to do is I want to take the right steps. And so that's what I tell my group is like, you either get the results you're looking for or the lessons that you need. And it's about learning those lessons and being the scientist in that you do certain activities and then you get an output. So you start eating a certain way and you monitor your weight. And if it comes off, great, keep doing it. If not, then, hey, that's all right. Let's try something different because there's a lot of tools. There's a lot of tools in the tool bag.
It's not a one size fits all program. What works for me, probably not going to work for you and vice versa.
Yep, that's exactly right. But starting with the belief and changing those beliefs, and really what it's about is changing your identity of how you see yourself, and start, putting together, you could first step is to figure out, okay, what am I really saying to myself? And then we've got to flip that script and write down maybe some positive mantras that we can post on our bathroom mirrors and our car, inside our car, or wherever it is, to say, I can do this. I am worth it. And that I don't have to be perfect. I am going to stumble, but I'm going to get right back on track.
And let's touch real quick about the importance of having good, positive support, because that can also influence and reinforce as you are shifting from a negative mindset to a positive mindset as you're working to lose weight. Yeah,
support is crucial. With your coworkers, with your spouses, and friends and family, having people there to support you that are positive and that aren't always beating you up. Because I see this a lot when I have couples in my classes. The woman's trying to lose weight, but the guy still doesn't care, and he's trying to. He will sabotage the woman. So you have to really surround yourself with people that are positive. And if they're not positive, then you got to figure out a way to work around that and block them out in a way. And don't let them discourage you from your journey, because it is your journey.
Indeed, it is.
Yep.
JJ, is there anything else here in our final 20 seconds?
I don't know. I just want to encourage people to know that they can be successful, and knowing that it's not going to be a perfect journey, because a lot of times we talk about weight loss, most of the time we think, oh, it's supposed to be this perfect linear downward. It doesn't work like that, right? Life gets in the way. You lose some, maybe you gain a little back, you lose some, but as long as you're making progress towards your goal, I think that's what matters. Yep. Don't give up. And that's the only thing too, is about, people tend to think, they say, I've been a failure. Well, the only way I see you can be a failure is if you give up. And that's not really an option for most of us. So don't give up.
Don't give up. All right. JJ, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next week for more AFMC TV.